Hi, so now you can see that that registration process is complete. So we, in the OVM Manager console, you can see we have the virtual machine template created there and its status has gone to active. If we switch back to the Assembly Builder Studio, again you can see registration of the template started and completed. So we're now ready to deploy. Just out of interest, if we go and here I am logged on, so again we're looking at the OVM server and I'm actually looking at the seed pool directory in the OVM server repository here. You can see the directory there for the new template, and if we just go in there, now you can see we actually have a number of virtual disk images that are going to be part of this virtual machine. So there's the virtual machine configuration file. You've got the standard sort of boot image here with Enterprise Linux and so on. You've got a separate disk with some Assembly Builder components there, and then the three folders that I needed to include in that image are also packaged up as virtual disks. So this is like the middleware home with the WebLogic installation, the domain home, and also the directory with the deployment objects and so on. And again, if we want to have a look at the way that virtual machine is going to be constructed, again you can see how the various virtual disks are going to be loaded, and then the rest is pretty much what we expect. So let's pop that down. We can go back to the Assembly Builder Studio, and don't forget, of course, we can have a look at the status of all this if we want. We can go here and we can look back to see the template being created. Here we are, and we can get all the information, the capture ID and so on. We can now see that the template registration is done. We've now gone to active, so that's registered with this OVM pool. And what we can do now is we can go ahead and do the deployment, and again pick up the correct deployment plan. Here I'm using the Enterprise Linux one. I can go in here, I could change the resources if I want to. In this case I'm happy to go with the normal one. So I can now click finish, and it's going to go ahead. If I just pull down here, we're going to see it's going to go ahead in a minute, and we'll start the process of deploying this virtual machine image. So what this is going to do is it's actually going to create an instance of the virtual machine. In this case we've just got the one. Clearly if you had a more complex assembly, then it would create all the various virtual machines. Let's just pop that down for a second, and then it will start the appliance up, and it'll start the WebLogic Server domain with the application deployed to it, and when that's complete it'll get its ready metric back via the phone home, and we will see a message saying that the appliance has been deployed, and then we're done and we can have a look at it actually running. Now again, that will take a few minutes. If we just go into the OVM admin console view, you can see here it's creating the virtual machine. Here we are, here's the OEL one that we're doing now, there's the VE one that we did in the first recording. So we're going to create that. That'll also go through an initialization stage as that virtual machine is started, and then once that virtual machine is running, Assembly Builder will do the rehydration, it'll recreate the domain, it'll start the admin server inside that domain, that'll bring up our application, and then we'll get the ready metric back to the Assembly Builder Studio to say that everything is done. So what I'm going to do once again, as this will take a few minutes, is I'm just going to pause the recording, and then we'll come. Okay, so we can now see that the deployment's been completed. You can see the various stages here, that the virtual machine template has been copied over to the running pool. So we have a virtual machine image, then that image is started, and once that's initialized and running, then Assembly Builder will apply any late binding variables. It will recreate the domain, it'll rehydrate the domain, it'll start up the WebLogic server with the application, and once that WebLogic server comes up and is up and running, then that's the ready metric phone home the signal back to Assembly Builder that we've completed the job. And you can see there that we've now gone to deployed, and if we go to the final stage of the lifecycle, you can see that application is deployed and up and running on the OVM server. So if we go over to the console, we can now go to the virtual machine view, and there you can see the virtual machine instance that's been created, initialized, it's now running, and that's running our WebLogic Server application, which we can have a look at in a minute. Couple of things just to have a look at. So if we now look in the running pool, of course we're going to see an appropriate directory created for the OEL instance of our application. There's the VE one, there's the OEL one. So again, if I were to CD in there, once again I can see this, exactly the same set as we saw there for the template. We just now have a running instance, and I can see virtual machine up and running here. And just as a little note, for example, if I want to basically start a VNC session into this virtual machine, I can do that. The thing that I want to do is to do an XM list -L, and if you just grep for location, XM list -L is what I want, and then I grep for location, I'll see this here, and this obviously 5900 is the default VNC port, so that's what you would use for to open up a VNC session in. If you had multiple virtual machines running which all were using the console, then you could have an offset from 5900, and that offset will give you the port you need to use to connect to it. So that's now up and running. Let's just go back and see what we have. So for example, let's do a couple of things. First of all, we started this on JRVE-1, that was our virtual address. So let's just start up the application console. While we're doing that, I'm also going to, well, let's do this first since it's there. So let me log into the console. So this is now running, this is the virtual machine running on OVM. And we'll just let that log in, and I'll be able to see my application. So here's my auction dev domain recreated. I can see all my various services. For example, I can see the JDBC data source being created, and I'll see this pointing to the external database that we specified as part of our build. There we go. And what I can do is I can also see my application deployment. So there's the application, it's active, it's up and running, which is great. And again, if I were to drill in, I can see that this application has actually been loaded from that labs obey directory. This was our obey appster directory that I packaged up and included as part of the template. So that's all up and running. And just to confirm it, for example, if I wanted to go in here, I could have the URL for the application itself, and I can hit it, and that will come up in just a minute as soon as that application loads. So while that's loading, what I'm going to do is let's start the VNC session just to see how that goes. So for example, I could go to real VNC. I'll just run a VNC viewer here. I've probably got one going already, but here you can see the application that's running there. Have I got VNC ready? Okay, let's pull up VNC. So here we go. I'm going to the OVM server on 5900. Again, remember, using that XM list -L and grepping for location will give you the port you need to use. So I can come in here, and I specified welcome1 as the password for my VNC session. And I've got a problem with VNC, but you'll be able to do that fine. I won't bother to go back and show you that now. and here's the application running in the normal way. So again, remember, with Assembly Builder is now controlling this deployment. So if I want to start and stop, deploy, undeploy, and so on, this is where I'm going to do this through Assembly Builder itself. So I'm now going to stop that, which is going to basically just stop that virtual machine instance. And again, if I were to go back to the OVM console, in a minute you'll see this going into shutting down, and that will soon go down to a powered off state. And then if I want to, I can go ahead when that's completed, and I could undeploy it, which would basically mean that we'll destroy the virtual machine image. We'll continue to have the template. If I want to go further, once I've undeployed, I could even go and unregister, which basically removes the virtual machine template from OVM. So that was a quick look at an equivalent operation to the first recording, but here we're using a full Oracle Enterprise Linux guest OS running under OVM, and we're doing all the introspection, packaging, deployment from the Assembly Builder Studio inside our VirtualBox environment. Again, do remember, if you're doing this, that it is important to have both forward and reverse sort of DNS name resolution between the VirtualBox environment and your OVM server. So again, if you're on an Oracle network and you're using bridge networking, that's absolutely fine. Otherwise, you can do it if you're using, for example, NAT, but you will have to use the notes that are provided to do the sort of handle port forwarding and so on. Okay, thank you very much.